Hey, so this is going to be a series of videos where I'll discuss some of my favorite apps that I've discovered where you can improve your musicianship while twiddling your thumbs, whether that means sitting in a drive-through, waiting in line at the grocery store, or chilling on the couch. So first off, some honorable mentions that don't count for this list would be music learning apps like Musician or Timbro, which don't count for this list because you use them with your instrument. So these are not for when you're chilling like a zombie, or for when you're practicing or playing, as it were. Also, this list doesn't include stuff like guitar tuners and metronomes because those are priceless tools, but they're tools that you use with your instrument when you're practicing or playing, rather than when you're chilling like a zombie. So the first item in my list, which is what this video is going to be about, is fretboard learning apps. And there are a variety of those available, at least on the Android App Store, probably also in the Apple Store. So list item number one, fretboard learning apps such as Fretboard Learn, which is an Android app that I use a lot. So here's my rationale for why I think these are such a cool option. Learning the guitar fretboard can be insanely difficult, which is why a lot of guitarists end up settling for just learning their scale shapes and forgetting about letter names in theory. And of course, that's going to get in the way of learning to read sheet music. It's going to get in the way of being able to understand music theory across multiple instruments. For those of us who do want to learn the fretboard, the standard advice is to just sit down and memorize it, which is great, but that's going to take a lot of focused, boring, repetitive work, which is far away from a musical context, which is what you want to do it for anyway. So in that case, what better opportunity to dive into mindless phone games? And of course, that's where Android apps come in. So here's the Android app that I've used the most for learning the fretboard. It's called Fretboard Learn, creative title, I know. It actually wasn't the first app that I fell in love with. The reason that I didn't fall in love with it at first is because it's a minimalist style free app, which means if you want to use it, you'll have to set your own goals because it's so open-ended. So it helps me to think of it less like a ready-to-go game and more like a fidget spinner that you set your own rules for. I think the most effective way to use this particular app would be to start by setting the restraints for the first couple of frets, first one or two frets, and then master that. And then once you've mastered that, kind of gradually expand as you level your way up, and think of that as your levels, because they don't have levels for you to beat. For myself, I have ended up logging countless hours on the guitar and bass mode for this, and a little bit with ukulele. Ukulele is less exciting because I don't play my actual ukulele that much, so the meaningfulness of learning that fretboard is way smaller. So for Fretboard Learn, on the homepage, you get to set the range that you want to be tested on, and then you choose the game type. Identify mode quizzes you on what letter name is going to apply to each given fret. The locate mode quizzes you on where you can find a particular note on a given string. Locate all is a super cool, super helpful mode where it quizzes you on where all the A's are across the fretboard, for example, or where all the B's are across the fretboard. Very helpful to get that in your head. The explore mode lets you just tap on any fret to see what it is, so you get to kind of explore. The pace mode is a cool feature which I haven't seen in any other apps. It basically lets you just set your phone down and it'll walk through as though it's quizzing you, but you have to do your quizzing yourself in your head. So that's great for if you're in some kind of context where you don't want to be constantly reaching for your phone. So for the longest time, I would use this app and I just set the sound off in the settings, and then I would just pull the app out whenever I had a minute where I was bored or a minute where I wanted to twiddle my thumbs. And it really was just a great way to just have this fun little thing on the tip of my fingers anytime I wanted to be building a skill while I'm twiddling my thumbs, as it were. And there's so much variety available in the app that if you're really using it creatively, you can do it for a good while without getting tired of it. And a great way to improve. Now, I'm in the same category here of fretboard learning apps, and my second favorite Android app for that purpose. Of course, I'm not talking about Apple because I don't have an Apple phone, but the Harmon/Musicom apps, it gives you a different company name depending where you look, so I don't know what the deal is with that. But these are things such as, there's one called Guitar Sheet Music Reading, and they have a bunch of different names and different instruments they do it for. But most of the guitar apps in this series have pretty cool fretboard learning games, as well as the bass ones. And then other apps in the series do similar things for drum set and piano. So this is the one that I mentioned where I got into it for a good while back before I got into Fretboard Learn. And the reason this was a much more attractive app early on is because they do a much better job of giving you kind of a more out-of-the-box preset experience that feels more like a game. And then it also feels more like you're advancing through a set program rather than this super open-ended thing like Fretboard Learn. So with most of these apps, at least with the guitar and bass ones, they divide the fretboard into first position, fifth position, and eighth position. They give you what would be 4 or 5 frets at once. And then it quizzes you to tap on the correct fret for a given note, which they represent through treble clef, through sheet music, which is cool. And it's helpful. You know, you might think, well, why would I want to be quizzed on treble clef versus the letter name, or vice versa? But I found it's helpful to have them both because it kind of, you want to have it in ready access in your brain, and getting quizzed on it like that helps put it into ready access for whichever mindset you want, whether you're thinking letter name or whether you're thinking treble clef. Even though in your head, you obviously know what means what, but it's helpful to have it lodged into that ready access, that intuitive, instinctive, I don't have to think about it part of your brain. There's also a mode that goes in reverse, but I didn't find it work well for me, so I never used it. All right, for fretboard learning, what about for the violin? So back when I was just getting started on violin, I was enjoying my guitar fretboard apps, and I thought, what, you know, it would be cool to do that with violin. I did find one for Android that works well. It's called Violin Fingerboard Trainer. I found it pretty helpful at first when I was just finding out where the notes are on the violin fingerboard. I haven't used it much since then because there's so much more of a focus when it comes to playing violin well, even at the beginner level. There ends up being a lot more focus on the pinpoint accuracy of intuiting and knowing where the note is with your finger rather than in your head. So it ends up being, certainly it's helpful to use this app, especially at the beginning, but then you'll be spending, at least I ended up spending a lot more time when I knew where on the fingerboard it goes in terms of which slot it goes into. But what I needed to do was get the muscle memory so that my finger actually knew in a pinpoint accuracy kind of way where the note is. So that's that. These are some of the fretboard learning apps that came to the top of my list of my favorite thumb twiddling musicianship apps because of just how much time I've spent with them, having fun twiddling my thumbs and actually getting better at understanding the guitar fretboard. My goal using these apps was and is not just to memorize the fretboard, but to get them so drilled into my head, especially maybe drilled in while I'm distracted, so that I can identify the notes intuitively and instinctively when I am distracted, or when I am doing something else, or when I am focused on, let's say, expressiveness, or let's say I'm focused on improvisation or music theory or whatever, and I can't be thinking, I wonder what note this fret would represent. No, you actually want to have it so drilled in intuitively that you automatically know what it is. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to be focused. So anyway, even though I still got a ways to go, knowing the fretboard better as much as I have gotten has already helped me such a ton in understanding what I'm doing on the guitar in relation to a key. Helped me so much in improving my lead guitar improvisation skills, and helped me so much, especially in being able to translate guitar notes back and forth with other instruments such as violin or piano. And it's such a fun thing being able to play something on the piano, either by improvisation or by sheet music, and then to be able to instantly put it over onto guitar and vice versa. All right, so that's it for list item number 1 in my series. This is the first in my list of favorite kinds of apps for improving musicianship while twiddling your thumbs. As this series goes on, I'll be working through a list of 8 kinds of apps that I've found to be most helpful and fun in categories like this. See you next time.